Hi, I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. I wanted to do this series on anxiety after I have gone through anxiety myself. I went through 7 years of agoraphobia, and God delivered me from that. And I wanted to share that experience with you in hopes that it will help you find your journey to freedom. I'm going to go through my book that I wrote out of that experience called One Trembling Heart, Out of the Darkness into the Light, a journey from paralyzing anxiety to finding rest. I will link this in the description, and also you can go to the Finding Rest podcast and listen to it for free. I'll be uploading a chapter every week. There are some chapters that are uploaded onto this YouTube channel that you can also go and watch. So this is going to be just a series, casual series, hopes to help you, hopes to show you to Jesus, not what I can do or not what I've done, but what Jesus did for me and setting me free. And I don't live every day anxiety free. I still have anxiety sometimes, and I think we always will, especially people who are more bent towards anxiety, people who are more bent towards and wired more emotionally. I don't know that we'll ever be completely free from it until we are in heaven, because we live on a fallen earth and life is hard sometimes and life is scary sometimes. But I do believe that we can come to a place in Christ where we can walk through it and not let it paralyze us and take our life away. So I pray that you'll join me on this journey. Today, I'm going to start with my testimony and tell you a little bit about how I got to where I was and how I got to where I am now. And so let's get started. So first, I was a pretty anxious child. I went through some trauma, some abuse from a teacher in the first grade, and I had to go on nerve medication, and it was just a really hard time as a child. She would scare us, she would call us names, just something that a child should not have to go through with a teacher. I spent most of my time in the counselor's office or at home complaining of stomach aches, didn't want to go to school, didn't want to get on the school bus. One time I hid in the ditch because I didn't want to go on the school bus. There were many times that my dad would chase me around the house. They didn't know what was going on. The teacher had warned us that if we tell anyone, that we'll get in more trouble. So as a first grader, you don't tell. They did finally find out because other kids started telling, and by that time they wouldn't move me out of that class because so many kids had already been moved out of that class, and they didn't fire the teacher because apparently she was involved in a relationship with the principal. So that was my first grade year that formed a lot of the anxiety that I think I felt as a kid. All of us grow up in homes that there's no parent that's perfect. So everyone's parents just doing the best that they know how. And my mother had been abused, and my dad tried to work hard to put food on our table. And so the environment that you grow up in just is what it is. And you learn as an adult that you can't continue to blame your anxiety on the things that happen to you. You make a choice of if you're going to be free from it or if you're going to continue to live in it and continue to blame others and continue to be the victim. And it was hard for me to say that when I had the anxiety, when I was in the agoraphobia. I wanted to be the victim. I just wanted to be left alone and live my life by myself, which is not a good thing and is not a thing that you can do. But, I guess it really started even in my mother's womb. They told her I was dead. The doctors were preparing her for surgery to take me, and her doctor just happened to come back from vacation early, and She said she felt me move in the middle of the night, and he said, this baby's not dead. So there I was, alive and born. So I want to just read from the first page, because I think it I don't know, it just dives into it. I really don't know where to begin. As I look back, I see nothing but the goodness of God in my life. I see his hand at work as he intricately wove a tapestry of freedom, love, and grace into every aspect of my life. In truth, my story is his story, and anything good, kind, or trustworthy, or praiseworthy is from his gracious and merciful hands. 20 years ago, my life was turned upside down with one news report. But before I go into that, let me give you a bit of my background. I wouldn't be here today without Jesus. I wouldn't be here today without his love, his grace, his strength, his power, his death, burial, and resurrection. There's no way I could sit here today if it wasn't for him. But because of him, I do sit here. Anxiety is not something that you need to be ashamed of. God's not mad at you for it. He's not beating you over the head for it. He's not waiting for you to change to love you. He's not angry. The word says that he is compassionate and gentle and kind and humble at heart. So that's the first thing to know, is that God is not angry at you for your anxiety. And for so long, I grew up in a culture of the word of faith movement. And so you weren't supposed to say anything negative, and everything was a demon, and you had to cast out everything. And so I have gone through so many anointing lines, and I'm not saying that that's bad for people to anoint you. It's biblical to be anointed and pray for people, but everything's not a demon, and everyone who has anxiety is not demonically possessed. Let's just get that out there. I grew up in a place of legalism through my Pentecostal roots and background. It was read more, pray more, have more faith. And as I went into childhood, teenage years, I was always trying to earn something from someone, always trying to earn love, affection. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be known. I wanted people to be proud of me. And I never felt I ever measured up, growing up in a place of poverty and other kids around me shunning me because of that, not wanting me to be in their group or play with me. It's hard. And then also being bullied as a kid, because I was very timid after my first grade year. I would cry if I made below an A. I would cry making a B+. I didn't like to miss any problems. I liked to be perfect. Perfectionism became one of my things that I pushed. I want to be perfect, because if I'm not perfect, then I'm not good enough. Into my teenage years, just going off the rails and knowing that God was there and hoping that he would forgive me for the things I was doing, but still wanting someone to love me, wanting approval, wanting to be known and seen. And then into my marriage, bringing all of that baggage in, and then becoming a Christian and growing up in the church, but letting that go, and then coming back to faith and wanting God then to see me as perfect and trying to earn my place amongst his people. And unfortunately, sometimes there are cliques in church, just like there are cliques in school. And I wanted to be in the group that was known. I wanted to be seen. I felt a call on my life, but no one seemed like they were recognizing that call. I loved Jesus. Even as a little girl, I loved singing in front of the church. I loved going up front when my daddy would play the guitar, and we had this little song I would sing, "He's Still Working on Me." to make me what I ought to be. Took him just a week to make the moon and the stars, the sun and the earth and Jupiter and Mars. And I love that song. And we had a little recording when I was a kid that my mom and dad made of us and my brother singing. And I was always trying to be the loudest. You can hear on the tape that I wanted to be the loudest. And I just wanted to be known. I wanted to be enough for someone. So coming into my marriage and trying to be enough for my husband and trying to be enough for God and trying to be enough for the people around me. And this became a place where I needed the right cars and the right house and the right clothes and running up debt and just trying my best and pushing myself so hard. I was afraid to miss God. I was afraid if I didn't pray for someone that I felt like I was supposed to pray for, that something bad would happen to me. If I had an argument with my husband, something bad God was going to smite me. If I didn't pray that day, if I didn't read my Bible that day, or if I watched TV instead of reading my Bible today, God was going to smite me. And I just grew up in this legalism and this place of just trying so hard to be somebody, trying so hard for someone to love me, but not for me because I wasn't enough. I want to have someone love me for who I think I should be, or who they think I should be, or what I think will make them happy with me. Who's the person that I think they want? My husband growing up in a home with pornography and dealing with that, and then me feeling like I had to live up to that, and never feeling pretty enough, and never feeling sexy enough, and never feeling like I was anything. I just felt like I was never enough for anyone. And the anxiety started. I always had this bent towards fear of dying, fear of something bad happening, fear of getting a disease. And I'd go to doctors, and then it started really bad when I heard about food allergies. And I never knew about food allergies. So I started researching food allergies on the internet, thanks to the great internet. And it came along about this time that we got our first computer, and I started researching food allergies. And I stopped eating basically everything except for chicken and broccoli and carrots every once in a while. And I went from 130 pounds to 108 pounds within a couple of months because I wasn't eating, and my doctor was going to put me in the hospital and enter the panic attacks. And I had, before that, I had my first child, and I had postpartum thyroiditis. They thought at that point I was having panic attacks, but it turned out that the doctor did have to apologize because it was postpartum thyroiditis. But from there, I think that really messed with my system. And then with the anxiety and the fear, the panic attacks started. And that was in 2002 that they got really bad. I had just had my second child, and he had turned, I think, a year old. Of course, there was 9/11, and I started having the panic attacks. And they would ebb and flow for about 10 years. They would come and go. I would have them just off and on, and I did lose the weight, and I wouldn't eat, trying to take care of my kids at the same time. But I could kind of make myself function at that point. And I could go out in public, but it came to a point then where we moved because of the Air Force, and then my husband got out of the Air Force, and I don't know, at some point it got so bad that I couldn't go to church. So that was the first thing. We stopped going to church. My body started physically showing anxiety all the time. Again, I could take care of my kids. I could still function, but I was having panic attacks. I drove by myself. I would end up at the emergency room because my heart would start racing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do anything by myself. My husband had to be with me all the time, and he was unfortunately having to travel at this time with his new job as a civilian. And then it got to the point where I had to have my parents or his parents come and stay with us because I couldn't function. I couldn't take care of my kids. In 2011, we moved again, and all of this moving was me just thinking, okay, if we move, then I'll have a new fresh start and this will go away. And it didn't. It followed me everywhere I went. In 2011, we moved to Missouri, to Ozark, Missouri, and I was not going to church because of the anxiety. I think at some point I was able to start going to church, but then in 2013, it hit really bad. I was still not eating a lot, but I had gotten to the point where I could eat enough that I had gained my weight back to about 125 pounds. And at this point, everything fell out. The bottom fell out. I just couldn't function. I couldn't function. I was having heart palpitations. I was having skipped heartbeats. I was going to cardiologist. I was going to my doctor. I wasn't eating. I was back down to 102 pounds. My kids couldn't have their friends over because I couldn't be around anyone. I panicked around everyone. Didn't matter if it was my parents. It didn't matter if it was my brother. It didn't matter if it was my kids' friends. It didn't matter who it was. I panicked. And so I got to the point where when people came to our house, I would hide because I couldn't talk on the phone. I had to miss family members' funerals. No one understood what was going on. Everyone thought I could snap out of it. So they're, of course, like, we'll have more faith. You know, I tried to go to church, and the women were like, well, if you would have more faith, and you would just come to church, the panic attacks would stop. I had people telling me I was lazy, I was selfish because I was making my husband do our house work and take care of our kids. By this time, I was so weak that I couldn't get out of my bed hardly. I couldn't walk from the couch to the bedroom. Jason had to carry me sometimes to my bed. They thought I was going to have to go in the hospital. My parents were convinced I was going to die because I was skin and bones. I wasn't eating. I couldn't eat. They wanted me to go on medication. I couldn't take medication. Every time I took the medication, I would panic. I got to the point where, honestly, I had to use a trash can by my bed to go to the bathroom because I couldn't walk to the bathroom because my heart was racing so bad every time I would get out of the bed. My husband didn't understand. Again, people thought I had a choice in this. They thought I could snap out of it. They thought I could push myself and make me do it. Women were telling me at church that were supposed to be in the prayer group, they're like, well, you're not listening to us, so we're not going to pray with you anymore. You need to have faith. You need to read these scriptures. You need to pray more. You need to do this. You need to do that. My husband was aggravated with me. I didn't know if we were going to make it through this. I didn't know if our marriage was going to make it. My kids were great. They loved on me. They cared for me. They never acted like anything was wrong with me. My kids, unfortunately, became my strength. And unfortunate to them during this time. I know that it was hard on them. I know that they have suffered in their lives because of that time, that they had to kind of grow up and be adults. And my oldest son kind of took care of my youngest son. And I wish that I could change that. I wish that I could have been a better mom during that time, but it was what it was, and I was where I was, and I couldn't push myself out of it. I couldn't bring myself out of it. And at that point, I didn't know where God was. I didn't know where he was. I spent many days on my bedroom floor saying, God, where are you? Why have you left me here? Why are you not answering my prayers? There were days that I felt like I couldn't breathe, that I was going to die. I tried to take medicine and I would panic. I tried to eat and I would panic. Tried to go to the doctor and I would panic. Just getting in our car made me have heart palpitations, and I just knew I was going to die. I knew I wasn't going to make it through this because I didn't know where God was. And in the book I wrote, "Why can't I trust God? I was scared all the time, yet also aware that I was supposed to depend on God for all things. Where was my faith? I'd ask inside, eventually filling with guilt because I couldn't trust God to take care of me. I would be on my face day after day, crying out to God, trying to figure out what I could do to get him to heal me. I read my Bible constantly and prayed all the time, but nothing seemed to help. I soon came to the conclusion that I was a bad Christian because I didn't have the faith required to get over my fear. And I was being told this. I was being told that I was a bad Christian. These women finally got to the point where they wouldn't email me and they wouldn't call me anymore because I wasn't doing things the way that they thought I should do them. And I don't hold a grudge against them. They were doing what they were taught. They didn't know about anxiety. The church just didn't know how to handle things like this. I think it's getting better, but still a stigma with it. As a Christian, there's still a stigma with anxiety. But there was a moment that I was in my prayer closet, and I very distinctly heard God say, "Gina, my love is enough to heal you." And there had been a counselor when we lived in Alabama who told me, "Gina, the question is not, do you love God? The question is, do you know that God loves you?" And I heard God say this, and he said, "You need to rest in my love, and that will heal you." And I told these women that, and they said, "You're being lazy. You're being selfish. That's just you not wanting to do what God is telling you to do." But again, I think people just don't know. They don't know how to handle it. They're just going by what they've been taught, that anxiety is demonic. And yes, some anxiety is demonic. I will not deny that. But there is anxiety. What I was going through was something that was chemically imbalanced and hormonally imbalanced. And my nervous system was overwired and it was dysregulated, and it was running on fight or flight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I couldn't stop it. I did get to the point where I could take a fourth of a pill, and somehow, by the grace of God, that got me to a stable place, that and God's love. And I was able to go off of that fourth of a pill. My magnesium was low, so I had to start taking magnesium and some vitamins. And even just taking them, I would panic because I knew I was going to die. My dad would sit with me on my couch, and I remember him sitting there and hugging me. And I was crying, and he said, "I don't know how to help you." My husband didn't know how to help me, and he since apologized for not knowing and for being kind of harsh during that time. And my family has apologized because they just didn't understand, and they thought I was being selfish. And I just wasn't wanting to do things, but I felt like I was dying every time I would have to see someone or leave my house. I couldn't go grocery shopping. I couldn't do anything. And then I started getting better, and I started resting, and I started listening to the Holy Spirit. And there was a moment when God said to me, "Gina, sorry. Jesus has already done everything that needs to be done. I don't need you to do anything for me. I need you to rest." And there's a scripture in 1 John 4:18 that says, "Perfect love casts out all fear." I was being told that faith would cast out the fear. I was being told you have to have, I'm sorry, but I hate the phrase faith over fear. Because yes, there are instances when that's true, but in this situation, that was not the case. And the Bible never says that faith casts out fear. It says that the perfect love of God casts out fear. We only can have faith when we know how much God loves us, and when we understand that his love will take care of us, when we understand that he loved us so much, he sent his son to die for us on the cross. And that if he didn't even spare his son, there's nothing that we need to fear. That he loved us before we ever loved him. That he loved us while we were sinners. When I was a teenager and I was going off the rails, he never let go of me. His hand was holding me that whole time. I can look back and see his hand in my life. That even then he loved me. And even in the middle of this anxiety, in the middle of this agoraphobia, he loved me. And that was, I think, the first thing that started to heal me, was that knowing right in that moment, God was not mad at me. He was not waiting for me to pray another prayer. He didn't get mad if I watched TV instead of reading his word. He loved me. He loved me, and he was not mad at me. He was so madly in love with me, and he wanted to heal me. He wanted to heal me so bad. But I had to stop. I had to stop striving. I had to stop trying to earn it. I had to stop trying being good enough, because that is what got me to the place I was in. I was so wrought up with anxiety and fear of failing God and him punishing me. And that verse says that it is for fear of punishment. That if we don't know his perfect love, we fear punishment. But God wasn't trying to punish me. He was wanting to love me. He was wanting to hold me. He was wanting to heal me. And he did. He began to heal me. And that was the peace, was knowing that there was nothing I had to do. Breaking those chains of legalism. In chapter 1 at the end, it says, "Oh, how the binds of legalism had already gotten their grip on me, doing their best to steal, kill, and destroy me utterly. Something had to be done before these binds literally choked out my life." In 2012, we became youth leaders and even had a life group with the youth. And I was sure then God would heal me, because not only was I in church every Sunday and Wednesday, but I was now a youth leader. These were the things I was taught, but they weren't true. And it was God's love that every time I felt like I couldn't breathe, his love gave me breath. When I was down on my floor so weak that I couldn't go to the restroom, his love gave me strength to live another day. There was a moment that I took a shower one night, and sitting in that shower, the enemy took advantage of where I was at, and he said, "There's only one way out of this. Only one way out, Gina." And I knew I wouldn't kill myself because I was so afraid of dying. But in that moment, I saw myself sitting in that shower with blood all over the walls and all over me. And so many people do take that route because they can't take the pressure of everyone telling them how they can overcome this. And unfortunately in the church, sometimes it's worse, of the pressure of feeling like you are a sorry Christian because you're even going through this and you can't buck yourself up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get yourself better. You can't cast out that devil. You can't overcome the enemy. One lady told me that I was worshiping fear instead of God. Again, there is some anxiety that it's easy to overcome, but when you're in this kind of place, you can't just overcome it on your own. Something's got to heal you, and that for me was the love of God. And that's why I want to do this series with you, because I want you to see that Jesus has done everything that needs to be done. There's nothing that you can do to make him love you or heal you or bless you. There's nothing you can do to make him love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make him love you less. So I pray that you will go through this journey with me. I got stronger. His love began to be the healing balm for my soul, for my mind. My son was getting married in 2020, and I so bad wanted to be at that wedding. And I didn't know if I could or not, and I eventually came to the point where I went to counseling. At first I thought, well, that means I'm weak. I gotta have someone help me through this. But it was the strongest thing I've ever done. It was not weak. It was courage to say, I need help. I can't do this on my own. And I got a great counselor. And the rehearsal dinner came, and I took the microphone, and I stood there. Sorry. In front of a lot of people, and spoke. The day that I went to church for the very first time was Easter Sunday. There was a church that had an outdoor service, and I knew if I could do it outdoors, it would be okay. Resurrection Sunday was my resurrection. New life. My father-in-law had also passed away during this time before the wedding, and there's things you think I won't make it through that, and I didn't know how I'd make it through it, but my husband needed me, my mother-in-law needed me to step up, and I did. God, that was when I first started going out of the house, was in 2020, and wouldn't God be like that? We're in the middle of a pandemic. People can't leave their house, people can't get together, and here I am leaving my house for the first time in 7 years. That would be just like God, to bring me out in the middle of a pandemic and say, okay, everybody else is going in, but you're going out. And I had to step up, and I had to help with the funeral arrangements. And then I had to go to the funeral. Where life ended, life began. I'll always remember that about my father-in-law. That Jesus brought new life out of death. And I was at that wedding, and I walked down the aisle with my son, and I watched him get married, and then I watched my other son get married. Those two kids, I love them to death. And my husband, he's been my rock. He was my voice when I couldn't speak on the phone, when family called and wanted to talk, when people would put me into panic attacks. He stood up for me. He was my voice. My son Hunter always had a hug for me. My son Michael would always talk me through a panic attack when Jason was traveling. My mom and my dad came and they stayed. And I'll never be able to thank them enough. My in-laws prayed for me. All of my family members prayed for me. But it was the love of Jesus that brought me out. It was the finished work of Christ that set me free from those chains of legalism. And it is the love of Jesus that I sit here today and say there's freedom for you. Not because you're good enough, not because you pray enough, not because you read the right scriptures or quote the right scriptures, not because you go to church, not because you get in a prayer line, but because he loves you, because he died for you, because he was buried in a tomb for you and rose on the third day for you. You're not a bad Christian if you're going through anxiety. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your faith. Your nervous system is messed up. There's something that's gotten you to that point. And it's different for everybody, and there's no blanket answer. The only blanket answer I can give you is the love of Jesus Christ that covers everything, and it is a healing balm that flows over you like Niagara Falls, and he will heal you. And I sit here today, a testimony of that healing. that I have hard days and I still struggle sometimes, but the love of Jesus carries me through. There is a love that will heal everything that hurts you, and it is Jesus Christ. You cannot make it on this earth without his love. Your feet have to be planted firmly and grounded in that love, the love that is so wide and so deep and so high and so long that you'll never be able to fully understand it. That is the love that heals every part of you. Only his love can do that. There is no love of any man or any woman or anything. There is no satisfaction in anything. No one can give you your identity. No one can do anything for you but the love of Christ. It is the one thing that will set you completely free from comparison, from perfectionism, from fear. And yes, I still have fears. And yes, I still struggle with the fear of dying. But he brings me out more and more every day. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to make it to that end until I am in heaven. But he has brought me so far. And it was nothing that I did. And it was not the prayers I prayed. Because there were days that I couldn't pray. There were days that all I said is, God, I don't see you. I don't understand this. I don't know where you're at. But it was none of that. It was not because I didn't ever doubt. I had so many doubts. I still have doubts some days. It was because of the finished work of Jesus Christ. And that finished work was because of the love of God. That's why he went to that cross. So I pray that if you are dealing with any kind of anxiety, you will join me for this series. This will probably be the longest one. I'm sorry for the length, but I needed to convey what he's done for me, that it is him and not me. I don't want any glory from this. Jesus gets all the glory. Jesus did the work. He's the one that set me free. He's the one that brought me to the place. And if he did it for me, who was so lost in her anxiety and so fearful that I couldn't leave my house, then he will do it for you, because he is no respecter of persons, and he has freedom for you just like he had freedom for me. So I pray you'll walk with me through this, and that you'll join me next time as we dive into this book, and as we dive into freedom from Jesus Christ. We're going to dive into this book too. I'm going to give you some scriptures. I'm not an expert. I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. But I have lived through it, and I have come out of it, and I have experienced the shortness of breath and the heart palpitations and the not being able to sleep and the insomnia, the body cramps and the muscle tension and the going to the doctors and the test and the being told I'm not faithful enough and I don't have enough faith. I've been through all of that. And sometimes that is what you need, is someone who's been there and can sympathize with you and knows how it feels, but also knows what freedom looks like and that there is a way out. And it is Jesus Christ. So thank you for joining me for this. I pray you'll come back again and we'll walk through this together. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you back here next Monday. Thanks.